straps. Lord help me. The straps are on the ground. Both of them. Pooled up in the mud like dropped laundry. Not an inch of tension left in the webbing. The bark just there, untouched. And I'm still up here, 6 feet off the leaves, easy, floating, rocking, slow, like there ain't nothing wrong at all, like gravity itself done forgot my name. Something under me, something under the fabric, holding me soft, cradling me like I weigh nothing more than a fallen branch. I can feel it breathing beneath the nylon. I can feel its fingers finding the shape of my spine. Now, before I take you up onto that ridge with him, let me tell you something the trail guides never put in their pamphlets. They'll tell you to sleep off the ground, get up out the damp, out the cold seep of the earth, away from the things that crawl low at night. Good advice far as it goes. But there's a mistake buried in that good advice. A quiet one. The kind that don't announce itself till it's far too late to climb down. They never tell you to look at what's beneath where you hang. 2 trees might frame the prettiest, most level stretch of ground a man ever found to rest his bones, and still be marking the lip of something old, something hollow, something that's been waiting a long, long while for a body to come drifting down into reach. The earth in these mountains keeps its own quiet accounts, and some of 'em get settled slow in the deep of the night, while a tired man thinks he's only sleeping. Ben had hiked alone more times than he could rightly count. Late October was his favorite season for it. The leaves gone copper and rust, the crowds thinned out, the whole Blue Ridge feeling like it belonged just to him and whatever quiet things lived in the laurel thickets. He was experienced, careful, the kind of hiker who checked his weather 3 times and still packed for worse, who'd learned the hard way never to trust a clear sky in these hills past sundown. That evening he was moving along a high, narrow spine of ridge, the trail no wider than a deer path in places, dropping off steep on either side into hollows you couldn't see the bottom of even in daylight. The fog came up slow, the way it does in those old mountains, rising out of the gaps like the earth itself was exhaling. Milk white and thick, and it didn't roll so much as it crept, swallowing the trail behind him a few yards at a time till he couldn't rightly say where he'd been. His trekking poles kept their rhythm against the stone. Tap, tap, tap. Muffled and strange in all that white, the sound coming back to him soft and wrong, like the fog was holding on to it a half-second longer than it should. Somewhere off below him, hidden by all that white, a creek was running high and steady, and even that sound came to him distant and damp, like the whole mountain had been wrapped up tight in wet cotton. He'd hiked through plenty of fog before, but there was something about the way this particular bank moved that put him in mind of water filling a basin, slow and deliberate, finding every low place on that ridge and pouring itself in. Dark fell fast up there, and the temperature with it, sinking toward freezing before he'd even thought to stop and look for a camp. That's when he found the clearing. Small, flat, ringed in dead bracken, and dominated by two ancient oaks standing maybe 15 feet apart, their trunks wide as oil drums, bark deep grooved and silvered with age. The kind of trees that had likely stood watch over that ridge longer than any trail had run through it. Good hammock trees. Perfect, even. He let his headlamp drift down between them, and that's where he saw it. A deep, shadow-pooled bowl in the earth, thick with dead leaves drifting down into a collapsed hollow beneath the roots. The kind of cavity you find where a tree's been slowly eating away the ground beneath itself for 100 years. He didn't think much of it. Just a low spot. Just a place the leaves like to gather. He'd seen plenty such hollows on plenty such ridges. Always assumed they were just old root systems finally giving up the fight against gravity and time. And he saw no reason that night to think any different. He went about his business the way he'd done it 1,000 times before. Unrolled the modern double-layered nylon, slate green, stretched taut and silent between the oaks, pulled the polyester tree straps tight, felt that satisfying resistance as the slack disappeared, heard the clean metal snap of the carabiners locking home, tested his weight, felt it hold steady, felt the whole rig settle into that low, even hum of tension that means a hammock's hung true. Strung his rain fly tight overhead against whatever weather the night still owed him, staking down the corners with the careful precision of a man who'd learned long ago that a sloppy pitch made for a miserable night. Satisfied, he crawled down into his winter mummy bag, snug and narrow as a coffin built for warmth instead of stillness, and zipped it shut behind him, chin to ankle, one long metal seam closing him off from the cold and from everything else besides. His arms pinned tight along his sides, his legs bound straight together. A man, sealed up snug inside his own small, dark, immobile world, resting just a few feet above a hollow he never once thought to call dangerous, letting the first soft patter of rain against the rainfly lull him down toward sleep, same as it always had. He woke at 3:13 in the morning. He'd remember that number a long while after. The little green glow of his watch face, the only light he trusted at first. The rain had stopped sometime in the night, and what was left behind it was a silence so heavy, so complete, it pressed down on his ears like water. No wind, no insects, not even the soft tick of cooling rainfly nylon. Just cold and dark, and that thick waiting quiet that mountains get sometimes. like the whole ridge was holding its breath along with him, waiting on something it weren't ready yet to name. He lay there a moment, letting his eyes adjust, telling himself it was just the cold that had woke him, same as it woke a man most every winter night out on a ridge like this. And then he felt it. A motion, slow, deliberate, side to side, side to side, even and unhurried as a porch swing worked by a patient hand. Not the wind, there weren't no wind to speak of, but something rocking him with a rhythm too steady, too intentional to be anything natural. And beneath that motion, something else. A pressure, broad and flat against the small of his back, pushing up gentle through the fabric, like a hand the size of a door frame was cupped beneath him, taking the whole weight of his body into itself, the way you'd take hold of something you didn't aim to let fall. The pressure shifted ever so slightly, settling itself more precisely beneath the curve of his spine, as though whatever it was had taken a moment to find the exact balance point of him, and now meant to keep him there. He told himself it was the wind catching the underside of the tarp. He told himself the ground had shifted, that maybe a root had given somewhere below and tilted the whole rig. He told himself a great many things in them first few groggy minutes, the way a man will when his mind's still half down in sleep and don't want to climb the rest of the way up into something it can't explain, something that don't fit nowhere in the ordinary shape of the world he'd known up till now. But the rockin' didn't stop, and that pressure beneath his back didn't ease. So he fumbled, slow and clumsy, inside the tight sleeve of his bag for the little headlamp clipped at his collar, thumbed it on, worked the zipper of the bug net down with fingers gone stiff from cold, just enough to crane his neck and look toward the trees holding him aloft. What he saw took the breath clean out of him. The straps, both of 'em, hanging loose and limp from the bark. Not a hair of tension left in the polyester webbing, pooled down at the base of each oak like something dropped and forgotten. Unattached, useless. And yet there he hung, same as ever, 6 feet up off them dead leaves, rockin' soft and steady in the freezing dark, held aloft by absolutely nothing a man's mind could call sensible. His headlamp was dying. The beam had gone that thin, sickly yellow color batteries get right before they quit on you for good. Barely strong enough to push back the fog still clinging low and patient around the clearing. With hands that wouldn't quite stop shaking, he turned that failing light down, past the edge of the hammock, past the place where green nylon gave way to black air, into the black mouth of the root hollow below. He had to will his arm to keep moving, every animal instinct in him saying to just lie still, to just let the dark stay dark and unexamined. And there, Lord, there, two arms, long past any natural length, thin as driftwood left bleached too many seasons in a creek bed, the gray, bloodless color of something that ain't seen sunlight since before Ben's granddaddy was born. They rose straight up out of the loose dirt at the bottom of that hollow, not bent at any elbow a man would recognize, just long and straight and patient, ending in wide-spread fingers pressed flat against the underside of his hammock, pressed there gentle, almost tender, the way you'd cradle something precious you didn't want to wake, something you'd already waited a long, long while to finally hold. The skin of those fingers, if it was skin at all, looked thin enough that the headlamp's failing light seemed almost to pass through it, the way light passes through the edge of a moth's wing held up against a lantern. Ben understood, in that frozen, breathless second, that he could not move, could not run, could not so much as kick free, because his own legs were bound tight and straight inside that mummy bag, zipped shut by his own hand hours before in a moment of perfect, foolish safety. To thrash was to tip, and to tip, zipped up, blind and helpless as he was, meant falling straight down into them long gray arms, into that soft, patient, waiting grip, into whatever else waited further down in that hollow than his light could ever hope to reach. The thought of it alone seemed to drain what little warmth he had left in him, faster even than the cold had managed. So when he did move, just a small, terrified shiver of emotion, the arms responded, gentle, correcting, a slow tilt, a careful recentering, easing him back to the middle of the hammock, same as a mother settling a fussing child back into the crook of her arm. Powerful beyond reckoning, and yet so soft about it, so unhurried, like there weren't no rush at all to whatever it was fixin' to do with him, like it had already waited a long while and could wait plenty longer still. And underneath the slow creak of nylon, underneath his own ragged breath, he heard it, a whisper, wet and rhythmic, matching the swing of him perfect, like wet leaves dragging slow across cold stone. It weren't trying to hurt him. That was a thing Ben come to understand somewhere deep in them long black hours, even as every part of him screamed otherwise. The grip never tightened. The fingers never dug in. It rocked him soft and steady, same as you'd rock down a colicky infant at 3 a.m, patient past anything human, like it had all the time left in the world, and not one single reason to hurry. Like time itself meant something entirely different to whatever waited down in that hollow than it ever could mean to him. It was trying to put him to sleep, and he understood, too, with a cold dread that settled deeper than the freezing air around him, colder even than the metal zipper pressed against his chin, that whatever happened once sleep took him proper, whatever came next, he wasn't meant to be awake to feel it. That much somehow he knew without being told. The same way a man knows certain things in dreams, with no proof to point to, and no doubt left over either. So he fought it. Fought the warm, heavy pull dragging at the backs of his eyes with everything left in him. He counted backward from 1,000, losing his place once or twice and starting over each time. He recited the names of every shelter he'd ever slept in, every trail marker, every creek crossing he could dredge up from memory, his whispering voice gone thin and cracked in the dark. He pinched the soft webbing of his own thumb hard enough to leave a bruise, anything to keep the edges of the world sharp a little longer. But the rockin' never stopped. Hour after hour, slow as a held breath, patient as stone, patient as something that had been doing this exact same thing for longer than them old oaks themselves had stood. The cold sank deeper into his bones with every passing minute. And somewhere far off beneath that endless gentle swaying, his thoughts commenced to soften, to blur, to slip loose of their edges one by one, no matter how hard he clawed after 'em. The cameras, such as they were, picked up nothing more after that. Just the rain returning sometime before dawn, soft against the leaves. Just the slow, steady creak going on a long, long while into the dark. And then, eventually, not going on at all. Morning brought a ridge runner up that same narrow spine, making her rounds same as she did most every week along that stretch. She found the camp sitting quiet and undisturbed in the gray early light. Rain fly intact, gear stowed neat, nothing disturbed by weather or by beast. But the tree straps lay loose and slack against the bark of both old oaks, pooled in the cold mud same as Ben had seen 'em hours before. And the hammock itself had gone flat, collapsed down into the heart of that root hollow, sunk low into the leaves, like a thing that had simply stopped being held. Inside it, the mummy bag lay zipped shut tight, sealed clean from the inside the same way Ben himself had sealed it the night before, entirely empty. No sign of him in the leaves round about. No boot prints leadin' off into the fog. No scrap of gear missin' from where he'd laid it out so carefully the evening before. Just that hollow shape pressed into the bag's lining where a body had lain. And the cold settled deep into the fabric, like it had soaked there for years instead of hours. The ridge runner didn't stay there long. Some places, once you've stood in 'em a while, don't seem to want letting go of whatever they've decided to keep. So when you go on up into them old hills, and you go looking for two fine trees to sling your rest between, take a moment, won't you, and look down first at what's resting below. Mind the hollows. Mind the deep-shadowed bowls where the dead leaves like to gather and never seem to blow away no matter how hard the wind comes through. Mind the quiet, low places the earth has hollowed out for itself over all them slow, patient years. 'Cause something down there might just be patient enough, might just have waited long enough already to wait on you a while longer still, to wait on you to finally close your eyes.